It is one of the biggest problems in the AI infrastructure build-out, and this tiny company has found one of the best and cheapest solutions. Joining us today is MarketBeat analyst Thomas Hughes with a look at one small company that is really starting to emerge as a top growth story in the AI infrastructure build-out. We're going to really dive into this stock in this video and three particular catalysts coming for this tiny stock and why it could be one of the next big growth stories in the market for 2026 and into 2027. So Thomas, first let's start out with the problem, and that is this AI infrastructure build out. And many people know there's energy as a problem. There is water as a problem. That's why there's so many concerns about data centers being built in different communities. Which area does this company help to address?
This company addresses several of the structural challenges involved with heat and with maintaining the systems. They help dissipate the heat and cool the systems, control the climate around the system so that they don't corrode and are able to last for as long as possible, which really is super duper important given how expensive they are and the expectation for their upgrade cycle to be in half compared to traditional GPU architecture.
Now, let's talk about some other stocks that have helped to kind of address that same problem in different ways. First that comes to mind is Vertiv. This is a stock we were talking about over a year ago as a really key player that was going to see a ton of growth in the AI build-out story because it helped to solve that cooling solution.
Right.
And that stock is up more than 133% in the last year. It's up over 1,000% in 5 years. So a tremendous growth story for a company like this. What are some others you can think of other stories where a company comes into this AI build-out story and really takes off because of the demand once these data center builders realize how valuable the solution is?
Oh, well, Credo Technologies is one that really stands out. This is a different segment of the AI build-out, but their active electric cables have proven to be cost-effective and fast for transferring data. They're being used extensively throughout the data center build-out, and this company's stock price and its revenue outlook is really reflecting its importance to the ecosystem.
Yeah, Credo is another great example. This stock is also up over 100% in a year. And that is even after the pullbacks that we're seeing in a lot of the AI sector in the last week or two. The stock dropped about 20% last week. And I know Vertiv was down last week as well as that AI story continued. But I think that is why it's such an interesting time to be looking at this name and looking at the whole AI infrastructure story because there's a ton of potential here. And I think with this small company that we're getting to, the price is less than $5, and yet the growth story potential is there. And you can see it in some of these other companies that have helped to solve some kind of bottleneck in the AI build-out and how well they've performed. And that's why I'm really excited to share this name with our viewers today. If you're looking for other names in that AI infrastructure build-out, I also want you to check out this special report. It's 10 stocks powering the AI build-out. You can scan the QR code or get the link in the description to get that free report right now on MarketBeat. Normally, these special reports on MarketBeat cost $30, but because you are watching our YouTube channel and supporting us, you can access this premium report for free. It has a ton of names that are very interesting right now because of the pullback that we've seen the last couple of weeks in some of these names. So make sure to take advantage of that free special report today by scanning the QR code or clicking the link. Thomas, let's get into this stock. What company are we talking about? And then we are going to cover three specific catalysts that are coming for this company that could really help see some tremendous growth.
Right. So I think it was really interesting that you brought up Vertiv as a comparison because this company's product meshes well with Vertiv and it can actually be connected to their system. So together, to me, these are a hand-in-hand growth story. And this is AirJoule. AirJoule is developing a new way of extracting water from air. It provides a cost-effective solution compared to traditional methods of doing this. And it is set up to become an AI enabler.
It's set up to become that, but right now it is still very small. We're talking about a company around $270 million market cap. And the stock story has some interesting history that we're going to dive into too. But first, I want to talk about if they have a product that works so well, why haven't they seen that tremendous growth yet, like companies like Vertiv?
Well, they're still a startup. They're in the commercialization phase right now. They've recently announced a major catalyst, which was the design lock-in for their Prime system. The Prime system is their industrial size system that produces water from air using excess heat from data centers. That water is ultra pure. It's good for drinking. It's also good for putting into your water-cooled system. So this system provides two forms of utility by one extracting heat that exists and then providing the water for Vertiv's cooling system. So really, to me, it's very important, very critical for the AI build out.
Yeah, this is a name that some investors may have heard of already, even though it is so small. And that's because there was a lot of excitement for this name back in October. We saw a huge spike in October that basically doubled the stock price. And now it's trading at about half of that right now. Can you talk a little bit about that price action? And was there just a lot of excitement from the market in October? And has that hype kind of died away? Has this company not really proven its growth story yet during earnings reports? What's going on with the chart action before we get into those three big catalysts?
That's just the market, getting a grip on what the story is and seeing like what the potential is and getting excited about that, and then realizing the reality of, oh, they're not commercial yet, but there are catalysts ahead. So I see the stock price recovering, pretty quickly.
But it has been on quite the downtrend, and it really fits the story with some of the other AI stories that we have covered in just the last few days. I know you and I were recently on talking about memory stocks, and those were all on a downtrend last week too. Why do you think we're seeing this AI downtrend right now, leading into earnings season?
Well, it's the between season period when there's just not a lot of news for the market to have to keep them interested. There's still concerns and risks because it is a pre-revenue company, and we're waiting for the next catalyst.
What is the first catalyst you're watching that could really move the stock price?
Well, the first catalyst will be the initial commercial launch of Prime systems. Those are expected later this year. As I said, they've locked in their design, so they're on track to produce systems. We're now just waiting for some OEM contracts to come in to put us on track for commercial deployments.
Going commercial yet this year is a near-term catalyst, but have we seen any delays, or is there something that could delay that launch, or is the company feeling pretty confident about a 2026 commercial launch yet?
We do feel confident about the launch, but there's always execution risk, right? So, like the biggest near-term risk for execution delay is waiting for their underwriter's laboratory certification. That's just a certification that says the product is safe to be used. Once it gets that certification, that will open the door to their commercial contracts, and I expect to see them start to coming in pretty soon.
Yeah, talk about the timing for investors to be looking at this name right now this week ahead of this catalyst and the next two that we're going to talk about as well. I think sometimes when investors look at a chart that has a lot of volatility, that a company that has yet to prove it's profitable yet, or even has a product that's super marketable, can be wary. It's definitely a risk. And so I want you to talk about that too. But I also want you to talk about why you like looking at companies like this before a major commercial launch.
Mostly because they're cheap, and this one has got a viable product. So there's risk in execution, there's risk in disruption, but they've got proven technology that provides utility. So for me, it's just a matter of time. There's going to be volatility between then and now. As far as the stock price now, it's trading in a range down in the low single digits. But provided contracts and starts making revenue, the stock price could shoot back up to the mid-teens where it was last year, which is when the market was pricing in all the potential. When we start seeing that potential be confirmed and reconfirmed, then the price action will start moving even higher.
Yeah, I'm having a little deja vu right now, Thomas, and it reminds me so much of the AMD story that you and I have talked about so much over the last couple of years. You were recommending AMD when it was on a huge downfall almost 2 years ago, and people were calling it, a portfolio destroyer. People were losing tons of money on AMD, and you kept saying something very similar, and that is that they have a new product that's coming out that's going to make them very competitive. When that product comes out, this company is going to see a turnaround. And I feel like exactly what you said played out in AMD's stock price this year. And so it does give me a little bit of deja vu to the conversation we had for almost a year about
Mhm.
AMD. Do you think that's a good comparison?
I think it is. It's a fine comparison. We're certainly looking at the realization of strategy. They've got a product. They're on track. We know that it's useful. It's just a matter of time for it to gain traction, and I see that happening this year.
All right, let's talk about that second catalyst that you're watching for AirJoule.
Well, the second catalyst will be the ramping of production. So once they start cementing sales and we get the company in traction, then the ramping of production and the ramping of sales will help to accelerate the stock price rally that will ensue. That should happen over the course of the next year. The way that data centers are being built out, the need for heat control, the need for water, I just don't see this company not experiencing really robust demand.
Yeah, there has to be proof in the product, though. As far as testing goes and regulations, has there been all of that done so far? I'm really getting at execution risk here and just wondering, do we know if the product works well? And are we fairly confident that once it does launch, there is going to be an uptick in demand?
Yeah, the products are being validated right now. There's some third-party validation going on at Arizona State University, and the AirJoule Prime is being sent to the Net Zero Innovation Hub for data centers in the EU, where it will be set up as a demonstration model for hyperscalers to come and check it out and see how it works.
I think that's a great point too. It's an international company. The data center build out isn't just happening in the US, even though we are seeing tons of it. This is happening all over the world. So the demand for what they're building, and once they can prove that what they are building works well and is cheaper than some of the other options out there, I think that that's when you'll actually see the growth story there. So let's talk about that a little bit. We haven't dove into why this is maybe a more affordable option than some of the other solutions to this data center bottleneck.
All right. So, for climate control and for generating moisture from air mechanically, it is cheaper to operate than traditional compressor-based air conditioning units. So, it provides a lot of utility. There is some concern from the short sellers who say that they're looking at it from the water purification standpoint that it's much more expensive than desalination techniques, and that's
Huh.
absolutely true. But I want to point out that desalination has got nothing to do with data centers or AI. Data
Huh.
centers aren't worried about salt water. They just need to have some fresh water. And so AirJoule makes fresh water and they control humidity. Desalination does not control humidity. So those two stories are really not connected at all. I think that the short sellers really have that story wrong. And that the long term application for this product really is going to be in data centers, but also in other industries that require fresh water, but also climate control, which is really, really important.
A good argument for why this is still affordable. But let's talk about that third catalyst. I know there's another one that you're watching that could move the stock price in the near future.
Well, right. The third catalyst is the launch of the AirJoule Core system. The Core system is a smaller unit. It comes in two different configurations, one specifically for climate control and dehumidification, and one specifically for water generation. But these units are designed for smaller industrial applications, but also for co-located water generation. We're looking at it for defense applications, for being deployed near like schools or for neighborhoods, which also need to have clean water. So this is just another long-term driver for the stock, a catalyst for revenue and for earnings over the long term.
Well, it's clear that analysts are also taking all of those catalysts into account because if you look at what the analysts are saying for price targets on this very small company, I think that's where investors can get excited too. Again, there's so many different theories out there about whether you should pay attention to analysts or not. And analysts have been late for so many of these AI growth stories in the last couple of years that some investors just don't pay attention. But I think it's interesting to look at the most recent price target from an analyst in May saying this stock could be worth $12. Consensus right now is around 8. There are some lower ones, but 6 is the lowest price target on this name. And so, what does that tell you, Thomas, when you see the kind of price targets we're getting on this small stock?
To me, it kind of reaffirms the potential here. It's still a high risk stock, but with the market trading, below the analyst's lowest target, it tells me the market's disconnected from what the opportunity is. And when we start seeing some catalysts emerge, we should start seeing the price action respond favorably, get back up above its critical resistance levels in the 450 to $5 range, and start moving up towards that consensus level of around $8.
Now, for those investors who are familiar with this name, I want to get back all the way to the IPO story from a couple of years ago. I think that investors who maybe got in around then have not loved this name. It's probably not been a great performer, just looking at the chart. For people who were in very, very early on AirJoule, let's talk about that IPO story and if the chart action at IPO seems pretty similar to other IPO stories that you've seen in the past, Thomas.
To me, it does. The market priced in an opportunity. The IPO happened, and the reality is it was a pre-revenue company with years until commercialization, so the stock price sold off. The sell-off has been, pretty big. It's in the triple-digit range, but it's not as big as it could have been. The stock has got support well above the $1 region, so it shows pretty good support. And since then, we've seen volume really rise. Volume is underpinning the support in the market today. That's really a good sign. It shows that investors are actually buying the stock and more investors, not just the same investors or hopeful investors, but a larger number of investors. That's reflected in the analyst trends and in the institutional trends. Institutions own a significant amount of this company, which is right around 65%, which shows a pretty high degree of confidence in the outlook.
Yes, the outlook is very strong. And like you said, when it launched, commercialization was still a couple of years off. Well, now we're talking about this year for having some commercial products. But the next big question that many investors will have is when could this company actually be profitable? When you look at the most recent earnings report, it's clear they're burning money right now. They're spending a lot of money to, again, hopefully one day make money. But what do you think that timeline to actual profitability could be after these commercial launches this year?
Yeah, so as far as profitability goes, analyst forecasts are forecasting profits by 2030, but I think that's really an iffy forecast. I think that it could happen much sooner than that. Once we have the product affirmed with third-party use cases, once we have the UL certification and the commercial availability, I think that the initial demand orders could come in much faster than what the market is anticipating. In that scenario, the revenue outlook and the earnings outlooks will be much too low. We'll start seeing analysts revising not only their revenue and earnings targets, but also their price targets, which will just be a big bundle of catalysts for the stock price.
Yeah, that 2030 timeline is a long ways out, but I also think it's important to talk about how long that AI infrastructure timeline could be. We know the build out is heavily underway right now. It really has been for the last year to almost 2 years across the country. But let's talk about the timeline of how long these data centers could be building and how much opportunity that could mean for this company.
So the build-out's gonna last for a long time. I think that revenue strength will be really good for the next 4 to 5 years while we're building out so many data centers. But then the long-term opportunity is also there because there's so much, cross utility for other industries. I think that this company really will emerge as a being critical to industries across verticals. But what the market's really getting wrong right now with this company is that it's an AI enabler. Without the heat control, without the water, these data centers just cannot operate. And when it comes to what it does, right now it appears to be producing the best product at the cheapest price.
Well, let us know your thoughts in the comments. Are you excited to learn about this stock for the first time and look into it more yourself? Or have you been burned by the stock already over the last couple of years? I'd love to hear from both opinions in the comments. And also a reminder, do your own research on any stock that you hear about. There's some exciting things here that Thomas highlighted, but this channel is all about stock ideas. So make sure you're doing your own research before buying a stock and adding it to your own portfolio. If you want to hear more about these AI infrastructure stories, make sure to watch this video. We dive into some really great names in the AI build out. These are all major bottlenecks that Keith Kaplan shares with the audience. You can watch that full interview here.